Where did you first meet Alan, Dave?
Where did I first meet him? I first met Alan at this place here.
It was a concert?
Yeah, in Covent Garden. It was a multimedia show. And I was living in Reading at the time, after leaving art school, Nottingham. I went to Nottingham Art School. And so I went along there and introduced myself at the end of the show, because he was showing slides, playing saxophone, cello, piano, and Tony Oxley band. And he didn't have a lot to say at the end of this, I just said who I was, and that pretty much ended that. And then, given that I was working in London, I used to walk round to Gimple's and see what was going on, and I'd see him. There was a time when I walked in and Billy was there, and there was a show of Alan's on, and he was up high up on the ladder, photographing black and white drawings on the floor. So I introduced myself again, and this time he was a bit more talkative. And he also said I tend to be a bit antisocial, So that was that. Time goes by, I go read up on him in libraries in London about him, because but where it really started was that was the first time I met him. But the other time, not to do with meeting him, but when I was at art school, I was near the end of the BA honours course, and I was painting in my area, and a student came along and said, it reminded him of Alan Davie. And I thought, who's Alan Davie? So I was wandering around Nottingham, came across an old bookshop, and that's where I came across this book here. And it was 20p at the time, and I thought, and then when I read the inside, which was all his statement of his work, I found quite...
That inspired you?
Inspiring, because I was into Jung symbolism and Zen Buddhism and all that I'd been introduced by a tutor in foundation course. And so that was the beginning of getting to know who Alan was. And that only came out because I used to frequently visit Gimple's, and I think I was going out with Annie at the time, in my future, later I got married to, and we'd look through the window and see him in his red jacket and usual Clark sandals with no socks on, and I just kind of slowly got to know Gimple's more, and I asked for the phone number of Alan Davie. So by that time we'd got married and living out in Surrey temporarily, looking after a huge house, rent-free. My wife was working in the city at the time, so the connection to somewhere to live, And so I phoned him up, and after Gimple's checked me out, and I went. He said, "Come over," and so I went over and visited in my old VW variant banger, and I got there early. I remember I got there, it's summertime, parked in the field. I'm so kind of excited. I couldn't believe that this was happening, So I kind of got there, and it was like just incredible to sort of the welcoming, and Alan's usual bear hug that he was known for, well, especially me anyway. Well, so. That was the first contact, and on that first meeting, he gave me a signed copy of a book, prints, lithoprint drawings, and he signed it saying on our first meeting, blah blah blah. Yeah, so that was incredible. When I left, I remember driving, and he used to drive. A great big white Bentley. I think it was a Bentley. It was quite a big saloon, massive, So I parked behind him. When I was leaving, I was reversing out. This is his home, And he put his hand up, and it was like it's like a sign, you know. He wasn't waving, it was just like, it's like imprinted on my brain, you know, his hand, like one of these handprints on a painting. You know. So I left and I was really excited and telling my wife Annie about it. And then, because over lunch we were talking, and he said, "Oh, I took with me when I went. I was showing in London with a gallery called Mora Kelly Fine Art, and I was involved in a touring show called the Subjective Eye, which Alan Davie was in. So, and there was a group of us, you know, quite a few. And one of my paintings was on the cover of the magazine, art magazine. So I took that with me as backup to this is who I am kind of thing, you know. And he wanted to come over and he wanted to come and see what I was doing. So we made arrangements for him to come over to our the cottage that in the grounds of this big house that we were looking after, you know. And so he came, he drove up. There was a big driveway, and I had to go down to the end and show him the way up. And there he is in, you know, the red VW Cabaret, head, you know, drop head down, in his sky blue puffer jacket with white beard, and Billy in a scarf, and you know. And that was just like huge greetings again. You know, I hardly know the chap, you know. And the house was a bit like styled in the same way as their house was. Everything was up top, the kitchen and eating area in the same. Anyway, so he comes out and puts his specs on, and he looks at the paintings and things, and he homed in on one, and he just come out with, "I wish I could paint like this." Really? And I thought, "Oh God, you can't, don't, you know." Right. Crikey, you know.
It's come back to you and said, "I'm impressed."
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like a huge compliment, you know.
That's fantastic.
So that all went very well, and there was a studio underneath the garage that I used, and he went through all the little stuff and told me how I should date everything, start doing it now, blah blah blah, you know.
So going on to, you've obviously got lots of photographs and albums of Alan Davie with you today. Well,
Well, the one thing is, when I went to see him, I did want to take a photo, but he wouldn't let me.
He wouldn't let you?
No.
Very private.
And I tell you, I've got a lot of stuff, but the only photos I ended up having was late before he. I mean, I could take a photo in the studio or something, but it wasn't usually with him, you know. Until I met Sylvia Morferson, is that her surname? Who was a close friend of Alan from the late 50s, 60s, where they used to go down to Cornwall and swim in. And she did a photo shoot in the studio, which I've got. So I've got those photos. And I said to Alan, "Well, this is the first time I've had a photo, you know."
So just rounding off now at Mervyn.
Yeah.
What's the biggest impression Alan Davie made on you out of all those experiences?
Yeah.
Would you say it's the top line moments?
Yeah. Absolute freedom. Freedom.
Really?
Yeah. And stuff like well, just within that freedom is that you could. He gave you the feeling you could do what you like. Because I know he used stuff from past cultures, and I was interested in all that kind of thing, but I'd be a bit like, you know, thinking about it, and he was just like, make it his straight away. It became who he was, you know. So, but he had this free thinking way. Yeah.
That's the impression it made on you.
Yeah.
Forward in your
and yeah, just that, and the positivity of it all, you know, and just. I mean, there were a lot of times like you're having lunch, and it would go a bit quiet, you know, because he wasn't. He took a while to get going, get talkative, you know. He's quite. He chose his words.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
Okay.
I quite, you know, enjoy talking.
That's marvellous.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Is that enough? This is the book I came across when I was at Nottingham Art School with the statement. Okay, about his gliding and shall I carry on?
Yeah, do please. Yeah.
So I've just started to write down everything that was going on at that time, and it also been written by Michael Horowitz, which years later I got to know quite well. I don't know. We tried to, when I was at Nottingham Art School, we tried to get him to visit the college, but he said he would only come if he could bring Tony Oxley Band. So he didn't come. And that was the first meeting of when I first met him. And I went to see that. I'm not sure the date of that, but I once phoned him from a phone. Oh God, yeah! I phoned him from a phone box once, just to say how much I liked the painting, and he asked me if I was a painter, and it was like this crazy thing. But I was just, that's one of my paintings, and there's, I was living in London, so I was going up and down the Thames on boats, and that's one of my early paintings from 1980, and that's the Subjective Eye show with all these different people. And there's where's Alan Davie? There. And they used my painting for the cover of the book. This is when we went to live in Surrey. That's my selfie of me before I went to see him in the field, before mobiles. Yeah. He did send me lots of postcards, which I've got from when they went to St. Lucia. That's when they would come over for supper and saying, it's been a privilege to know Alan and Billy, and it's I miss him. Yeah, I really miss him. I miss talking to Alan and David. Yeah. Sat here many times, lunch with Annie, and also when our son was born, we took him in a rush basket and plonked him down the side of the table. Sorry, and yeah.
That's special.
Sorry.
Very special.
Yeah, I mean it's every time was to savour the moment, being there, and I just wanted. I knew I had to leave at some point, and he didn't want to leave.
Marvellous.
Yeah.